dismay and disappointment of some, perhaps. But
Well, I got to tell you.
I'll have to learn to live with their disappointment.
Whose disappointment?
Whomever.
Somebody's disappointment.
Whomever.
It's not my disappointment. When you...
It's not any of the partners or any of the employees either. I think that's what we really shot for. I think that's what we were going for when we started this thing.
So starting Muddy River News. So obviously, this man needs no introduction. This is Bob Gough. He is from Perry, Missouri, the great Perry, Missouri, which I was, again, yesterday.
Did you stop by the Oasis?
I did not.
Did you stop by the Junction?
No.
Did you stop by Rick's place?
No.
I stopped. Hot spots. Did you buy antiques?
I stopped by Perry Machine and Die.
Oh, the Berries. Good people.
Yeah. Yeah, they're awesome. I
Yes.
took care of the cooling towers.
Good,
But,
they're good people.
But Rook, why does Muddy River News, why are you doing this?
Well, I went to Mizzou to journalism school. Originally, I wanted to be Bob Costas or Jack Buck, and then so I got into the news business and worked at KHQA and WTAD and did the whole gamut there, and then decided to go work in politics for a bit, and I was working for the state of Illinois. And then I wasn't working for the state of Illinois when the governor took over. But I've forgiven him since for other reasons we might get into later. But then I was involved in a local political campaign, the mayor's race, and I was helping run Paul Havermehl's campaign. And had Paul won, there was a chance I was going to go back to Springfield to work. There was a chance I was going to maybe work at City Hall. But Jim Rapp asked me if I was interested in getting back into news because he really enjoyed QuincyNews.org and Quincy Journal, which were other news sites I started back a long time ago, like in the late 2000s, like 2008 in that area. And I said, sure, I had a business plan stuck in my back pocket, and there were other business owners and entrepreneurs in town who had asked me the same question, so I'd kind of shopped this thing around a little bit, and I had multiple people interested. But Jim has been business partners and friends with Mike Kincher for a long time, who owns Central State Bank, and they wanted to bear the brunt of it, and so I said, okay, let's talk about it. And then Jim called again the day we all found out the Herald Whig was sold, and then he was really ready to move then because everybody knew what was going to happen once the Oakley family got out and once out-of-town ownership took over. And I said, well, I got to get through this election. Let's wait. Well, then, as most people know who follow politics, Paul lost by 23 votes in the primary to Mike Trope. That was a little tough pill to swallow. So the following morning after the election, that night I was just, I was devastated. Paul was devastated. Pam, his wife, was devastated. When you work a campaign like that, you become a family. It was hard. I mean, 23 votes is you'd rather lose by 2,300 than 23. Because you always think I could have made one more phone call. I could have flipped 12 of those people who voted for the other guy. I could have made 25 more phone. You second guess a lot. So that night we were in the tower basement. Rod and Jeff McLean, and the McLeans were good enough to let us have our campaign shop there, our victory party. We were hoping we were drowning sorrows, and I drowned a lot of sorrows that night. 7:30 the next morning, I get a phone call from Jim Rapp. Are you ready to talk? Can we talk about starting a news organization? Like, Jim, I just got kicked in the balls really, really hard, and I haven't recovered yet. So my wife and I are going to go to Columbia, Missouri this weekend. I'm going to eat some Shakespeare's pizza. We're going to think about our futures. He goes, can we meet Monday? Sure. So Elle and I talked about it, and do you really want to get in the news business? I said, well, do you want me driving back and forth from Springfield every day? Again, like I did for 4 years. And she said no. She says, well, Jim Rapp's a good man. Let's hear what he has to say. Because we'd had dealings with Jim in the past. He helped my parents when they were selling their business. Martha was the director of PSR at St. Peter's. When Jim's wife, Martha, was the director of PSR when my kids went through it at St. Peter's, and she was their teacher 1 year. She was great. She's great. So then I get back, and we have the meeting, and he has my proposal, and as a good lawyer, and he's a great lawyer, one of the best in town, best in the area, state. He kind of redlined all my stuff and outlining questions. So we sat there for a good while and talked about it. He told me the number he and Mike were committed to give me to build this thing. And I said, I need 2 years. I need by the end of 22 to really make sure that this thing's a go. And we made it sooner than that, obviously. And the advertising's been incredible. The readership's been incredible. If you take away the R&D stuff, we're in the black, but we still do a lot of R&D, a lot of expansion. I really, truly believe that we're about to experience our first year in the black, and that's very exciting for a company that's really still in its baby steps. So that's the Cliff Notes version.
How often do you talk to Jim?
5 times a week.
Wow, so
at least. So we generally talk every morning, most mornings, unless he's traveling out of town or unless I'm on a deadline or trying to get something done. And then we generally talk once on a weekend on a Saturday or Sunday morning. And then, I'll run into Mike Kinshriff at Mass and his wife, Ellen. He's married to an Ellen, too. And then every time, they couldn't be more supportive. They couldn't be better partners. We have an announcement coming up here pretty good about a pretty major award that we've won for some statewide news coverage. And we're going to announce that here pretty soon. And I sent the preliminary note out to the Kinshriffs and the Rapps to say, hey, just so you know, we've done this. And they're beyond proud. It's really a calling. It's a mission to Jim and Martha. And Mike's just a good guy he just wants to do the right thing. So,
So is Jim, I saw Jim and Martha at the St. Peter's picnic. And Jim and Martha, if you're listening, I had a couple too many beers maybe, but sometimes the Catholics are trying to make me drink lots of beer to support the organization. So, oops. But
all given our own way.
So
we give our time, talent, and treasures all given in different ways.
So is Jim really as amazing as I think he is?
Jim, Martha, I can't say enough good things about the Rapps and the Kinshriffs. Their total unwavering support. With every startup, there's a hiccup and a oops and a burp, and we've had a couple of those. But they've rolled with the punches. Our victories have been far more numerous than our defeats, which is nice. But I think if we'd had a rockier start and had not been as well received as we had been, I think they'd still be saying, "Hey, let's wait it out. Let's play the long game here." But we've become relevant a lot faster than a lot of people thought we would.
Does Muddy River lean left, right, or center?
Center.
On purpose?
Yes.
Why?
Because that's the way we wanted it.
Okay.
Because there's enough media out there on each side where we all get in our own silos and say, okay, I want to listen to these people who are going to tell me what I want to hear, both on the right and both on the left. We want to tell people the truth. We want to tell people what's happening in their community, and we really don't want to spin it in any way. We want to report facts and not alternative facts. And we want to say this is how we see it. These are the facts as the best we have gathered, and take it or leave it or make your own conclusion.
Do you think people in Quincy and in the area, because it's not just Quincy.
No, we cover a 10-county area.
10 counties. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a lot. It's more than
it's a lot. We hired Megan Duncan to cover Hannibal for us starting of this year. That was a big investment for us. We were looking at a couple of different options on an expansion, and we just decided to find someone in Hannibal who was there and rooted in and could just walk in and hit the ground running. Meg's got an office downtown now. She's just doing a great job. She cranks out content. She's a prolific writer. She and Steve Inger, they just write more than any two humans I've ever seen, which is great because we need content. And I don't write nearly as much as I'd like to just because I'm busy kind of running the show. But it's... I look at I'd like to be able to cover more down in, Pike County, Illinois. I'd like to cover more in Brown County, Hancock County, Monroe County. I'd like to be able to do more in those places. And I think as we look at what our next steps are going to be, do we try to concentrate more on this area, or do we look at setting up Muddy River News North in the Quad Cities? Do we look at setting up Muddy River News East in Danville? I'm just throwing names out there. We had a conversation with a gentleman in Florida who really wanted us to go down there, but we really kind of want to stick to a common footprint right now. I think going out of our, going and doing something and making a big investment somewhere where we don't have someone we know, trust, boots on the ground all the time. And that's a bit more of a risk than we probably want to bite off. Should we start something in the Quad Cities? That's close enough where, I can go up there and we can take a look at things. So there are we have a lot of options for the future. And again, we're really just getting started. I mean, we talk about how much we think we've accomplished, but I think we have a long way to go and a lot more to do.
There's this idea of news organizations. So you believe that, I believe that Muddy River News is an independent news org. That's my perception of what I think. Even before I started doing...
And don't get me wrong, before, I ran news outlets that definitely had a rightward slant. Don't get me wrong. I freely admit that. I don't try to hide or run from that. And then, yes, I worked for Republican campaigns, and I worked for a Republican governor in the state of Illinois. So don't get me wrong. Yeah, that is true. All those things are true. But it can also be true that I can divorce myself from party politics, which I have done, in order to just sit down and work on independent journalism like I did before I got into politics, like I did growing up and working at the University of Missouri's television station and working at news and radio in this market, in television and newspaper. So I can flip that switch on and off. I know some people think I can't, and some people might think that, you can flip the switch on or off because you have no convictions. I guess, okay, I guess that could be true too. I don't know.
But people who know you privately know that you have convictions. I mean, you have serious convictions. So in the green room when we're talking, it's pretty clear. So you know the difference between right and wrong. You are clearly you have lots of convictions. As a matter of fact, here are some convictions. You do Cursillos. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's for those people who don't know what a Cursillo is. What is a Cursillo?
It's, they don't like the term retreat, but I think it's a retreat. But they don't like that term. It's an organization run by a group of local Catholics. It's a diocesan effort in which you just go and you try to, kind of reconnect your own spirituality. And again, one of my things is I am a Christian, and I stumble and fall a lot, like we all do. But in the end, I do try to do the right thing, and I do. Sometimes I look myself in the mirror and say, "What the heck did you do, you idiot?" And then there's sometimes say, "Okay, you did the right thing." But again, it's a great opportunity to connect, and I've been fortunate to be on several of them and had the opportunity to be in some leadership on some of those teams. And I'm excited to be doing another one again next year. And but it's something, again, it just kind of helps my connectivity with God and my wife. I mean, we do these things together too, and it's something that we just really enjoy, and it's made our marriage much stronger and better.
There's this idea, kind of back to Muddy River for a second. Do you think, what is the percentage versus like local versus national politics? Muddy River
on the site.
On the site,
we don't do any national news.
Like zero, right?
No, we try to stay as far away from possible unless it has. I mean, we do statewide news. We try to cover what happens in Springfield, and then whatever our local senators and representatives are doing. Unfortunately, our local senators and representatives don't give us a lot of information these days, for whatever reason that is. But the only thing we will cover is the people who represent us in Washington. That's as far as it goes. I am not going to get into the presidential race at all. Come November 2024, the day after the election, yeah, we might run a story that says Fred wins, Joe wins, John wins. Notice I'm not even going to take a guess on who the next president might be because I have no idea. And we might just run a little story on that or just something to acknowledge it. But we're not going to get into the weeds on Trump versus Biden versus DeSantis versus whomever. I'm not playing that game. If you want to, you have plenty of options out there to go read about that. We don't have to be one of them. We can be a refuge from that. We can be, hey, this is going on in your community. This is going on in your kid's hometown. This is your kid's high school that Matt Shuckman's covering in sports. This is what's happening in Hannibal, Quincy, and the other towns. That's what you can focus on and see what's happening in your community and the things that really matter and the things that are important. Yes, national politics are important. Yes, the presidency is very important. We're just not going to spend a lot of time covering that.
What do you say to people that can't differentiate between what they see in the headlines versus a podcast? So, for example, obviously you have developed a lot of different avenues, podcasts. You've created this network, this framework of Muddy River. I mean, Muddy River is growing, and you've added more and more and more stuff. I mean, you're adding a lot of content. You're taking people's opinions. You're allowing them to come onto microphones and say what they want to say out loud. What do you tell your readership, the people who go to Muddy River News, when you say we don't do any national politics, but then like somebody in a podcast will say, well, Trump or Biden or this. How does Muddy River differentiate between the two?
You mean if somebody on one of our podcasts talks about it?
Yeah.
Well, that's, you do your podcasts and we give you the freedom to talk about what you want to talk about. That's fine. Any podcast that I'm associated with, whether it's Club Muddy or I fill in on Daily Muddy, or if I'm going to start a new podcast or what have you, those are going to be pretty much be what I want them to be. They're going to be my vision, and they're going to share the vision more of this. But if we bring in any other independent people who want to do podcasts, that's fine, and they can talk about what they want. The other thing is, this when we started this, we certainly said this. This is not going to be the newspaper on the internet. It's not going to be, I'm going to copy this newspaper story and I'm going to move it and put it on the internet. And I'm not going to have any links to it, and I'm not going to have any video, and I'm not going to, that is a recipe for disaster. And when you look at the reason the newspaper industry is dying, it's because, especially in markets like Quincy, that is what they are doing. They are not going to the full multimedia, using the full capability of their multimedia platforms. So they're not doing that. That's why they're dying. And also, people have to realize we're going to have content that is going to be a heck of a lot different than you might have read in your local newspaper in 1985. It ain't 1985 anymore. It is 2023, getting ready to be 2024, and we are going to have stuff on there that's going to maybe make somebody go, my thing is, don't watch, don't listen if it offends you.
When you were saying that it's not 1985, I was going to say, yeah, it's 1984.
Perhaps. It was 1985, and I'd be heading to, if it was 1985 this year, let's see, it would be, I'd be a freshman at Missouri. Probably would not be sober right now. I am actually sober now. It's my first drink.
Yeah.
And probably getting ready to watch Mizzou get their ass kicked in a football game. So that was what my fall 1985, and getting ready to watch the St. Louis Cardinals in the playoffs, which also isn't going to happen this year.
Right.
So,
it's not. So you're the editor. Well, you're the editor in chief.
I'm the publisher.
Oh, you're the publisher.
David is the editor.
Oh, David is the editor.
Yes.
Okay, you
David
are the publisher.
I'm the publisher.
Okay, I did not know that.
Titles.
See, titles not. I mean, what's in a name?
I'm also the general manager too. So.
Okay. So you are from Perry, Missouri, and it's when you publish things, when you put something out on Muddy River News, there are people that see, does it say J. Robert Gough on it? I think it says.
Yeah.
What was Perry, Missouri like? What did you do growing up? And here's why I'm asking you, is because people have heard of your name. They've seen you many times. Anybody who pays attention to podcasts or is going to the site to read, they're always going to see J. Robert Gough. Anytime they see that, it's you. Believe it or not, Bob, I think people want to know where you came from. Did you come from a large city? Did you come from a rural area?
Perry, Missouri is Mayberry. Basically, it was Mayberry.
Population?
It was 839 when I was growing. No, 9. It was like the high 800s, low 900s when I was growing up. It's like in the mid 600s now. My parents still live there. I try to see them, every couple 3 weeks or so. I need to see them more than I do. But I am playing golf with my dad on Sunday over in Paris, so that'll be fun. But yeah, we had a community pool, so I swam at the community pool that was 4 blocks from my house. I rode bikes, I played ball, football, basketball, baseball. I don't think I saw a soccer ball till I went to Mizzou, to college. And I'm like, oh, that's a soccer ball. I mean, a real soccer ball. I see it on TV, but I was like, that's a soccer ball. Okay, it's a little bigger than a volleyball. I mean, I just didn't. We played football, we played baseball, we played basketball. Again, I didn't play any of those very well, but that's what I did. Rode dirt bikes, worked on my grandfather's agribusiness growing up. I delivered newspapers. I mowed yards. I had your basic, typical small town life growing up. I mean, really small town. We had a 5 and Dime, Irene's 5 and Dime growing up. We had a Goss's clothing store. We had a couple of taverns. We had maybe one tavern by the time I was old enough. A couple of restaurants, a cafe. I mean, to the 2 filling stations. I mean, it was 2 grocery stores.
You just called it a filling station.
It was a filling station.
Yeah,
That's right. I was born in 1966, so yeah, do the math.
How many people in your graduating class in high school?
74.
Where'd you go to school for college?
Mark Twain. Mark Twain High School, right there on the highway that you probably drive by if you are going to Perry that route, if you're going 61 to 19. And then, of course, Mizzou.
What was Mizzou like back then?
It was great. It was. I'd always wanted to go there because I wanted to do journalism, and I'd read and found out that the world's best journalism school was 100 miles from my house growing up. So why go anywhere else? I got some scholarship offers at some other regional schools, and then a couple of other bigger schools like SMU and some other places, academic stuff. But I said, well, why am I going to go anyplace else? I mean, I grew up watching the Missouri Tigers in basketball and football. I wanted to go to the games. I wanted to get involved in the sports department. I wanted to do all this stuff. So I did all that. I did everything there that I wanted to do. It was fantastic. I couldn't have had a better experience working at going through the J School, working at KOMU. I made some dear friends who I still have contact with today there, thanks to Facebook mostly. But Mizzou was just an incredible experience, and I still tell people if they want to go into journalism, I still think that's the place to go. Now, college is a lot different than it was back then. Obviously, it's a lot more expensive, and colleges have always been melting pots of ideology. I understand that, and I saw some of that there. I worked with, the first time I'd ever worked with gay people was at the television station. Sure. And they were out. It was the late 80s, mid-late 80s. But yeah, I met these guys and it's like, okay, they're gay, that's fine. And then really more of an experience with blacks as well, because Mark Twain, in Rawls County, most of the blacks live in New London, and very few blacks at that time hardly any lived in Center or Perry. So, I mean, I didn't go to school with any black kids until 7th grade. And and then so going to college, though, obviously, it's a melting pot. And it was great. I made some great friends there at Mizzou, and it was a growing up experience. And it really, I was in this. We think of Quincy as this bubble a lot of times, but you're in a town of less than 1,000 people. We're really talking small. We're really talking a bubble. And going to a Cardinal game was a big deal back then. Or I think I went to Chicago. My parents took me to Chicago. I went to Florida, made a couple trips to Disney. Parents took me to Chicago at one point in high school. But really, I did not get out of the state of Missouri except to come to Quincy, every so often. So.
How long did it take you to finish?
A&B Properties is Quincy's largest apartment rental company with hundreds of units available. They offer short-term and long-term rentals with 1 up to 4 bedroom apartments. A&B Properties meets the needs of its tenants with care, compassion, and a quality of service that exceeds expectations. A&B Properties also has a convenient tenant app for you to do your payments or make repair requests. Give them a call today. A&B Properties, 217-919-8080, Quincy. College?
Yeah.
4.5.
4.5?
Yeah. I had a class that I could not get into the end of my year. It was either take 18 hours and cram it through, or take a summer class and take a fall class in 89 and be done. I'm like, I'll go 12-3-3 as opposed to cramming all 18 in because of my senior year. I didn't want to do that.
It's fun.
And there was also a class I really wanted to take in the summer, because when you took those summer classes at KOMU in Missouri back then, you had a lot more freedom, a lot more time. You could be a lot more creative. There were fewer students there, so you could do more news stories and you could be on more I anchored sportscast. I anchored the Sunday night sportscast at KOMU for my last 2 years there. So I got to do that the entire last summer I was there, and it was great. And I graduated in December, and then turned down jobs because I thought I was too good for them, but also because they were really small places that were really far away. And the news director, I sent my videotape back then, to KHQA, and Ron Heller was the news director back then, and he offered me a job. And my very first story that I covered when I came to KHQA in Quincy, Amy Holm is her maiden name, and she was a reporter there as well. She was a Quincy girl, and she said, hey, can you run camera for me? I want to go interview this singer at the state fair, Garth Brooks. And I'm like, and I mean, at this time, I mean, he had gotten big, and he had just really kind of broken through, and I had his cassette. Again, more dating myself. I had a cassette. And then, so I got to run camera on the interview with Garth Brooks. It was like one of the first stories I did at KH2A. So.
What's your best memory in college?
That I can repeat?
That you can repeat.
Would be meeting my wife.
What year did you meet her?
86. I was a sophomore. She was a freshman. Cosmo Park. It was a keg party at Cosmo Park. She was there. She lived on the same floor as a girl I went to Mark Twain with. And she wouldn't get in the car with me to give her a ride home.
Smart.
Smart. She went. She got a ride home with my friend. I went home with some guys. I went to the dorm the next day to meet her and talk to her. We went and had a date. And then we didn't speak for a couple weeks, and then I was in a class with the woman that I went to Mark Twain with, and ran into her in the hallway. Literally ran into her and went, "Oh hey, oh yeah, hey, you want to get some pizza later? Sure." And then
no cell phones.
God, no cell phones. No
cell phones.
No.
So how'd you get a hold of her? I mean, okay, so
I drove from my apartment to her dorm. I called her on the telephone, on the landline, those things. Then I would take her to dinner and then take her to movies.
Did Mizzou have push-button landline phones or rotary phones?
They had push buttons in the dorms. I had push buttons in my apartment. Yeah, they were push-button phones. Yeah.
You were in an apartment your sophomore year?
Yes.
Oh, what? You weren't in the dorms?
No, just my freshman year. You save so much money. So much money. It was, my
really?
freshman year at Hudson Hall, I was on the 7th floor, Spencer Hall, the Spencer Spermies, and it was great. I met some good guys there, some guys who I was friends with for a long, long time and hung out with, but it was so much cheaper to be in an apartment. And it's like, when you live in a dorm, it's like, oh, if I go get McDonald's, I can't because now it's like, I can go get McDonald's, or I can eat my mac and cheese, or I can eat my frozen pizza or whatever. So, yeah, I lived in a house with 4 other guys for my sophomore, junior, and senior years, yeah.
Where's Ellen from?
St. Louis, Florissant, Missouri. She went to Hazelwood Central High School.
Okay, so when you graduated from Mizzou, you took this job, and then she had another year left?
She was at UMSL at the time. She had decided she didn't want to be at Mizzou if I wasn't there, which I thought was pretty sweet.
Nice.
But so she lived at home, worked at a hospital in a dietary department, and had a really good part-time job there, and finished up at UMSL. So I'd drive back and forth to St. Louis, and she'd drive up here, and then so for a year we did that. Then we got engaged in June of '91, and then married in July of '92. We had an apartment out in the Summer Creek subdivision, south of town, south of Sheridan. That was our first apartment. And she started out as a para-educator in the Quincy Public School System. She was a para-educator for 1 year, then became a special ed teacher, and she remains a special ed teacher to this day.
So Ashley Conrad and Brittany Bull refer to her as St. Ellen.
I have no idea why.
Oh.
I just think I should be St. Bob, honestly.
I don't know if Ashley and Brittany would say that, but maybe.
I don't know if Ellen would say that.
I don't know. I mean, so talking about journalism, do you think journalism degrees today are comparable to a degree that you got?
You have so much, the internet just changed everything. You have so much more access. You can know so much more. You can research so much better. There's so many, you can be so much better at your job now. You don't have to go work at a TV station or radio station you can start up your own thing. If you've got the connections and you've got the talent and you've got financial backers, or you get a part of a, VC or something, do your own thing now.
What
that
about
was not thinkable
30
years ago?
People coming out of school right now with journalism degrees, and maybe they're woke, maybe they tell the truth, you see what I did there? Maybe the perception is that they're telling the truth if they're quote-unquote woke. No, the reason why I'm saying woke, I'm not making fun.
No.
I'm saying there is a thing right now when you go down the Reddit journalism holes here, which I did in the green room today so I did some homework on this, where there's this idea or there's this possible perception that when you get a journalism degree, if you go, there's a way to go off into bad territory. I'm putting that in quotation marks. So, what kind of advice do you have for somebody who's in school right now?
I think you should go to a school like Missouri that offers you the chance to develop your skill set, in which you'll learn how to edit, you'll learn how to write, you'll learn how to do all the things you need to do your job and communicate. I was very lucky because I was sort of born a ham, and the first time I sat down at a TV desk, I blew through it, and it was a flawless read, and 10 other people were sitting in the back of the room like this, and I was like, yeah, I can do this. And but then you screw up, and you still mess up, and you get back up, and you dust yourself off. But I think it's you get that experience, and then go intern. I mean, the internships are valuable, but then also do some things that are outside your comfort zone. If you say you get your journalism degree, but you have something you want to specialize in, whether it's tech, whether it's food, whether it's politics, you should do an internship in those areas to kind of get your feet wet in that. I think that helps and goes a long way. Also, I just want to say that I was very sincere about meeting my wife, being my college experience, and not seeing Bo Jackson naked or meeting George Brett in the Kansas City Royals locker room. Although those things were awesome too, still meeting my wife was best.
Oh wow! I hope she hears this podcast. I may I don't have her. I may have to find a way to get in touch with her and tell her to make sure she listens to this pod. Do you think that is journalism is going? Are more and more people going into journalism school right now, or has it capped off?
I haven't
more
done
media.
Any research. Oh my God, media is infinite right now. I mean,
it's infinite.
I had a chance to go internship, get a paid internship at ESPN one summer, and I didn't do it because it just wasn't enough money. And I was like, back then, I was like, well, I mean, back then student loans were not Jesus. I think I had $7,000 in student loans when I got out, so not a lot.
Wow.
But again, I didn't want to go work this $4.95 an hour job at ESPN being a grunt. I just didn't want to do that. And although it probably, had I done it, I mean, I knew guys that did that. A guy named John Anderson, I think, did that. And he was a couple years ahead of me at Mizzou. And John Anderson became an anchor at ESPN eventually.
Oh.
There were 2 or 3 guys who did that. Who went from Mizzou to ESPN and CNN, back when CNN actually did sports. But yeah, I think that And I had a decision to make, and the decision was: do I stay here, raise a family in a pretty nice small town, or do I drag my family over the country trying to, do that Bob Costas or Jack Buck thing? And once we had Alex, it was kind of like, okay, we're just going to stay here, and it worked out because at that time her parents were still alive, and they were in St. Louis, and my parents, who are still alive, thank goodness, we were close enough to them. It just made sense to do that.
How many of your kids are out of the house?
2.5. Scott is the youngest, is a junior at ISU, and we just got him out the door a couple of weeks ago. Michelle's teaching, bartending, working, doing all that good stuff up in the Rockford area, and Alex works for Governor J.B. Pritzker, and I'm incredibly proud of all 3 of them.
So the youngest, I think I met Scott one time on the porch. When,
Probably.
Yeah. I remember he was going to the grocery store to get something, and
it was probably mac and cheese or a Tony's Pizza or a Jack's Pizza.
Yeah, that's like, I think that's what it was. Yeah. I think it might have been a pizza, like a frozen pizza.
I'm sure.
And then I remember him walking back up the driveway and thinking to myself, I think I'm going to stick around for that pizza, but I didn't. But what do you give? So I've got 3 kids. Mm-hmm. They're 8, 7, and almost 4. What advice you got for me?
You're not their friend. You're their parent.
For how much longer?
The rest of their lives.
Even when they're...
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. Because that's not really what a lot of parents think.
They're wrong.
So this idea of not being a friend. So I know, so this kind of hurts my feelings because I've got one of the things, like my ex-girlfriend, I'm not going to say her name right now, but her family's in town, and I still love her family so much. And I remember like thinking like, and because I mean, I know her sisters, and I know that whenever, yeah, you can top off. Yeah, you can just keep going. I can do 2 things at once. This idea of these girls are great friends with their parents. I mean, their parents have stopped parenting them. So what do you say about what happens if you've got really successful kids and you want to stop parenting them? and you just want to be cool because they're successful, whatever
Well,
that
you can
looks
still
like.
be cool. You don't have to be an asshole, but you're still their parent.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got situations still where the kids pop up time to time. It's kind of like, really, you try to give them the advice, but if they're, I also, the other thing is, you're not the, you're also going to let them choose their own path. You got to let them make their own mistakes. You got to let them skin their knee. You got to let, we put these kids in these bubbles now, all the helicopter parents who, my gosh, we ran around in the creek and played in the creek and rode dirt bikes and drove cars too fast. Shit's going to happen. You can't put your kids in bubble wrap until they're 30 years old, because then they're going to come out and they're just not going to be ready for the world. We've tried to walk that fine line. Like we were dealing with Scott's fastest stuff the last couple of days, and he didn't fill out a couple of forms, didn't do a couple of things. Like, well, I said I'm supposed to get this money, and it's not there yet. I'm like, well, because you didn't click this. So we sat down last night on the phone, or not on the phone, texting, got on the thing, got all straightened out. You went to financial aid office today, all taken care of. But still, I filled out all my financial aid forms, and I didn't have a computer back then. It was all in a pencil and what were those, Scantron and all that crap.
Yeah.
And I filled out all my financial aid forms, and I did all that stuff myself. And my dad and mom were strict with me. My grandparents all showed me this great work ethic, as did my parents. And I think that is that's the example you want to set. Again, you're their parent. You're not their buddy. Yes, you can go have Alex and I will go have a drink when he's in town, and we'll hang out and just talk. But still, in the end, bottom line is I'm still his dad.
Do you think, so take your kids out of this for just 1 second. Do you think kids are more equipped or less equipped?
Far less equipped.
Why?
Because their parents don't let them live, and they don't give them any freedom, and they don't, again, let a kid skin his damn knee,
So this is kind of a problem. So I don't know if I read this in Muddy River or something, but it junior high stopped having cell phones.
I think that's great.
Yeah, so there were people that had a problem with that. They said, what happens if my kid has an emergency?
They still have landlines in the classrooms.
So what's the parents' problem about little Johnny not having a cell phone?
The parents just need to get over it, and their kids are going to follow some rules, and somebody else gets to set the rules. They don't get to set the rules. Again, back. God, I want to sound like a freaking old man. If I got my ass beat in school, I was gonna get my ass beat twice as hard at home. That's not the case anymore. You get obviously you can't put a hand on a kid these days, but little Johnny didn't screw up. It was the teacher's fault. Little Johnny's perfect.
I'm not going to ask you if
There's
spanking
way too
is
much
wrong.
of that.
All right, I'm not going to ask you that because it's too.
I can't.
You can't even say it.
I can't. The times I spank my kids, I can. All 3 kids combined, it's less than 5.
Even when they were like 3 years old?
Oh yeah, no. Because you got to get to a certain age. That's too young. I don't know. Yeah, I remember.
Spanked?
I remember twice in my life. Yep. I deserved it too.
What happened?
Turned out like this. And that's, I guess.
Did you do anything really bad?
I called my brother a really bad name.
Okay.
Like a really, really, really bad name.
Okay.
And my mom made my dad. Mom made my dad do it, or dad just did it. But yeah, I got the belt, and I deserved it. I totally deserved it. I was an asshole.
Did you call him that again?
When they didn't hear me. He was older, and he wouldn't narc on me like he did back then.
That's different.
And I can't remember the other time. It was something stupid. But I'm 99% sure I deserve it.
Yeah, I 100% got spanked.
I only remember twice, and there's no trauma. It's just okay. I had as average a childhood and adolescence and growing up in teen years as any kid who's going to grow up in a town and have friends and have a graduating class of 75 kids. It was really pretty. It was great. It was pretty average though.
Where were you in the 75? Were you middle of the pack, towards the top, at the bottom? Were you like dead
GPA?
center? Like in the, yeah.
Well, I was 5th.
5th?
I was student council president. I was captain of the quiz bowl team. I played football. We didn't have football senior captains. We rotated all the seniors were captains because we had like 8 guys, so we all rotated, and we were all really good friends. Yeah. So I was a junior. I was junior class president, student council 4 years.
What would you say to young people here in Quincy that want to start practicing writing letters to the editor to just try to kind of like, let's say that there's something really important to them. Not that you're going to guarantee that it'll get published, but how would you respond? Let's say somebody wrote something to you and it wasn't that good of a letter, but the message was really good. Would you, let's say you decided not to publish it, would you send any correspondence back to that person and say, you know what, very good letter? Like, what would you say to a person, like young people who want to write in and kind of just start?
If somebody sent something that was really bad or really had issues, but they seem to be have a genuine thought, a genuine concern, I would talk to them and maybe try to help them frame it and help them with it.
Not that you have the time to do that for every single person.
No, but I mean, David handles a lot of the letters to the editor, and he'll send stuff to people back, and so we do that some. I mean, but a lot of them come in and they're very well written and done.
You might get a I don't want to say the name, but you may get a 12-year-old girl writing a letter to the editor.
Okay.
She's got a pressing need right now, and she wants to kind of speak her mind.
Okay.
And she kind of even wants to see what will happen if she sends it in. She's not expecting to get published, and if she's listening, you've got the.
You got to put her name on it, though. We don't let you not put your name on it.
Anonymous is no good.
No.
Oh, you got to have.
Got to have your name.
You got to have your name.
Got to have your name.
All right. So remember
Unless
that, Emily.
we decide to do a collaborative effort on ourselves. We can do our own and just put Muddy River News, but you'll know it's somebody here. But no, we don't just take somebody's. I'm not going to take a letter from Cat Turd and post it on there.
Cat Turd.
Have you seen that Twitter feed?
Oh, you hate that Twitter feed.
It's awful.
I sent you something from Cat Turd once, and you didn't like it.
Put your name on there. Put your face and your name on there. Your name's not Cat Turd. You don't look like a cat. Put your name on there.
Yeah, people like that.
No, it's ridiculous.
They want to follow Cat Turd.
Stupid. Well, they're stupid.
Yeah, they are stupid.
Follow people who have the balls to put their name and their face out there.
How many people do you follow on Twitter?
I keep it under 1,000.
You keep it under 1,000.
If it gets to 1,000, I chop it down.
You do.
I keep it under 1,000.
Okay, and so do you get a lot of who's your favorite follow on Twitter? Which, by the way, anybody who's listening right now and says, like, I don't know why Frankie's talking about Twitter, that's stupid. Listen, if you're not on Twitter and you don't collectively formulate your own Twitter feed of things that you want to see and listen to and learn.
Super 70 Sports and 3-year Letterman.
Wow.
They're like total, like, off-the-wall comedy, stupid stuff. Yeah. As far as podcasts go, I really like Kara Swisher. My political ideology is a complete opposite of hers, but she's really good, and she's got her 2 podcasts. One is Scott Galloway, and the other called Pivot, and then the other her own podcast called On with Kara Swisher. And she was the guest, most recent guest on the latest episode of Smartless with those 3 guys. So
yeah.
It's good. It's a great
Bateman,
podcast.
Will Arnett,
and Sean Hayes. It's excellent.
That's,
I mean,
really
so
good.
she's really good though. She's very smart. She was a pioneer journalism in tech. She is, again, I don't agree with her ideology on anything hardly, but she's very smart and can convince me a lot of times. Oh yeah, you're right. So,
do you learn from your Twitter feed? Do you have the ability to learn?
I have the ability to learn. I have the ability to change.
From Twitter.
I'm pliable. I'm flexible.
I'm smart.
I'm not. I can be persuaded. I'm not that. I mean, I've really.
Where do you go for your news?
Muddy River.
Of course. Okay. All right. So what's the second place you go? Let me ask you this. Do you check your Twitter feed for when do you check your Twitter feed? Do you do morning?
Morning, first thing in the morning to make sure the world didn't blow up, and then like probably sometime usually like mid-afternoon, and then maybe in the evening.
Do you go to any major legacy media outlets ever?
I still have CNN and Fox on there just to have those 2, just so I can watch both of them and see, So those 2.
Okay. Where do you see Muddy River in the next 5 years? Last question.
Bigger, better, and making a difference.
Bob Gough, J. Robert Gough, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you.
Had to do it.
See ya.